The rain-slicked streets of Eldridge Hollow gleamed under the sodium glow of a single street lamp, the kind that buzzed like a distant swarm of angry bees. It was just past 2 a.m., the hour when the town folded in on itself, secrets pooling in the gutters. At the edge of the old bus stop, a weathered shelter with peeling paint and a bench scarred by years of neglect, two small figures huddled together. Benji Lynn, no more than 8, clutched his sister's hand, his thin frame shivering not just from the chill, but from the bone-deep fear that had chased them here. Kara, 10 going on ancient, had draped her coat over him as best she could, her eyes darting to every shadow, every passing headlight. They weren't waiting for a bus. No routes ran this late. They were hiding, the backpack between them a silent sentinel, heavy with whatever ghosts they'd carried from wherever home used to be. Finn, Ranger O'Sullivan, throttled down his Harley as he rounded the corner, the engine's low rumble cutting through the night's hush like a predator's growl. He'd been riding aimlessly, the kind of patrol that kept the demons at bay, those old wounds from a life that had chewed him up and spat him out in pieces. The club patch on his leather vest, faded iron promise insignia, caught the light for a moment, a reminder of oaths sworn in blood and brotherhood. At 42, Finn was a man built from scar tissue, a jagged line across his jaw from a bar fight in Iru 9, eyes shadowed by the loss of his own brother to a war that never made sense. He lived by the code now, promises kept, no matter the cost. Spotting the kids, he killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the patter of rain on his helmet. He dismounted, boots crunching on wet gravel, and approached slow, like he was nearing a wounded animal. "Hey there," Finn said, his voice gravel rough but steady, crouching to their level without invading the space. Kara's eyes snapped open, wide and feral, pulling Benji closer. The boy whimpered, burying his face in her side. Finn held up his hands, palms out, the rain tracing rivulets down his knuckles. "Not here to scare you. Saw you from the road. It's colder than a witch's heart out here." He shrugged off his jacket, worn leather, smelling of oil and road dust, and draped it over them both. It swallowed their small forms, a makeshift shield against the world. Kara hesitated, then nodded faintly, her fingers tightening on the backpack strap. Finn's gaze flicked to it then, the bag sagging unnaturally between them, zipper strained as if it held more than clothes or snacks. Kids on the run didn't pack light like that. He'd seen enough strays in his time, runaways from broken homes, shadows of the foster system that chewed up the innocent. But this felt different, heavier. "That yours?" he asked Kara, nodding at the pack. She bit her lip, glancing at Benji, who was finally peeking out, his cheeks streaked with dirt and tears. After a long beat, she pushed it toward him, a silent trust born of desperation. He unzipped it carefully, the sound like a whisper in the rain. Inside, nestled among crumpled clothes and a half-eaten sandwich, was a small metal box locked tight, its surface etched with faint scratches, like it had been clawed at in panic. But it was what lay beside it that stopped Finn cold. A crumpled photo, edges frayed, showing the kids with a woman who looked too much like Kara. Same sharp cheekbones, same wary eyes. On the back, scrawled in hasty ink, "If anything happens, find Ranger. Iron promise. He owes me." Finn's breath caught, the name hitting like a gut punch. Ellie Lynn. Kara and Benji's mom. She'd been a nurse at the VA hospital back in his drifting days, patching him up after a bad wreck, trading stories over stale coffee. "You keep your word, Finn," she'd said once, her voice fierce despite the exhaustion. "That's rarer than gold these days." He'd promised to watch out for her if she ever needed it, foolish words from a man who thought he'd never settle. But Ellie had vanished years ago, whispers of bad debts and worse company. The pieces slammed together, the kid's terror, the backpack's weight, the photo like a ghost's summons. Someone was hunting them, that much was clear. Eyes in the shadows, the kind of pursuit that didn't end at dawn. Finn froze, not in fear, but in the clarity of decision. Handing this over to the cops? No. Eldridge's badges were tangled in strings pulled by folks with money and no soul. Corruption that festered like an open wound. Ellie had trusted him for a reason. He zipped the bag shut, slinging it over his shoulder. "Come on," he said softly, standing and offering a hand. "My place isn't far. Warm food, dry clothes. Then we figure this out." Kara searched his face, the rain mingling with her doubt. Benji tugged her sleeve, whispering something about the bad men. She nodded, taking Finn's hand, small and cold in his calloused grip. He led them to the Harley, fashioning a spot for them with an old blanket from his saddlebag. The engine roared back to life, a defiant thunder as they pulled away from the bus stop, the shelter fading in the mirrors like a discarded skin. The ride to the Iron Promise clubhouse cut through the pre-dawn fog, Finn's mind racing faster than the bike. The club, an old warehouse on the outskirts, ringed by chain link and the ghosts of better days, was home to 20-odd souls like him. Vets, outcasts, men who'd traded chaos for codes. He'd walked away once after his brother's death, but promises pulled him back. Now this one burned fresh. Ellie had saved him in her quiet way, pulling him from the bottle's edge. For her kids, he'd move mountains, or bury the ones who came hunting. They arrived as the first grey light bled over the horizon, the club's floodlights casting long shadows on the gravel lot. Finn killed the engine, helping the kids down. Benji's eyes widened at the row of bikes gleaming like steel sentinels. Kara clung to the backpack, but her shoulders eased a fraction. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and motor oil, a few early birds nursing mugs at the scarred oak table. Jax, the club's grizzled enforcer, looked up from his cards, bushy brows knitting. "Ranger, the hell you got there?" Finn met his gaze, the weight of the photo still heavy in his pocket. "Trouble," he said simply, "but ours now." He guided the kids to a couch by the fire pit, the flames crackling low, casting flickering warmth. As Benji finally relaxed enough to nibble on an offered granola bar, Finn pulled Jax aside. "Ellie Lynn's kids, she's gone, and someone's after them. Found this." He showed the photo, the writing stark in the lamplight. Jax whistled low, rubbing his scarred knuckles. "Ellie? Damn! You call the crew?" "Not yet." Finn's jaw set. "But I will. Word's out. We ride for family, blood or chosen. These two? They're ours till the truth comes clean." Word spread like wildfire through the club, phones buzzing in the dim hours before sunrise. By the time the sun crested, casting golden edges on the bikes lined up like an army of iron, Finn knew the promise he'd half forgotten was alive again. Ellie had believed in him when he didn't. Now, with Kara watching him warily and Benji dozing under a blanket, he'd prove her right, or die keeping it. The first riders arrived, engines harmonizing in a symphony of loyalty. Finn stood at the door, the backpack at his feet, the metal box inside a riddle wrapped in danger. Whatever secrets it held, they'd face them together. In a world that broke its oaths daily, the Iron Promise held. And for these kids, it would burn bright. The clubhouse door creaked open under Finn's hand, the hinges protesting like an old man's sigh, as the first wave of Iron Promise riders pulled into the lot. Their Harleys thrummed to a halt in a chorus of gravel crunch and exhaust sighs, the air thickening with the scent of hot metal and rain-damp leather. Jax clapped a heavy hand on Finn's shoulder, his voice a low rumble over the dying engines. "You sure about this, Ranger? Dragging kids into our mess? Ellie's ghost or not, it could pull the whole club under." Finn's eyes, shadowed by the brim of his cap, flicked back to the couch where Kara sat rigid, her arm around Benji's sleeping form. The boy's chest rose and fell in shallow rhythms, the blanket tucked around him like a fragile armor. "Sure as the road ahead," Finn replied, his words clipped, carrying the weight of oaths etched into his soul. Ellie had seen the good in him when he was just a wreck of a man, piecing together a life from the shards of war and loss. Her note wasn't just ink on paper, it was a tether, pulling him back from the drift. "We don't turn away from promises. Not here." The riders dismounted, a procession of weathered faces and tattooed arms, their vests patched with the iron promise emblem, a coiled serpent around a broken chain, symbol of bonds that couldn't be forged or shattered by outsiders. There was Lena, the club's medic, a former army nurse with silver streaks in her braid and hands steady as a surgeon's. She nodded to Finn, her gaze softening at the sight of the kids. Beside her, Marco, the quiet mechanic whose fingers were stained black from engines and who spoke little but fixed everything broken. And at the rear, Tate, the youngest at 28, his eyes still carrying the fire of a man who'd lost his squad overseas, same war that had claimed Finn's brother. They gathered in the main hall, the space lit by hanging bulbs that swung gently from the draft, casting swaying shadows on walls lined with faded photos, group rides under endless skies, toasts to fallen brothers, moments of quiet victory. The fire pit snapped and popped, sending sparks dancing like fireflies, while the aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the faint tang of gun oil from the armory door. Finn set the backpack on the scarred oak table, its thud echoing like a gavel. Kara's eyes locked on it, her small face pale but resolute, as if the bag held not just secrets but her very breath. "Ellie Lynn," Finn began, unfolding the photo for the group. The image stared back, Ellie in her scrubs, smiling wearily with Kara on her hip and Benji a toddler at her feet, all of them in a sunlit park that felt worlds away from this dim refuge. "She patched me up years back after a spill that nearly ended me, gave me this." He tapped the back of the photo, the scrawled words "Find Ranger" blurring slightly under his thumb. Her kids show up at a bus stop running scared with this pack. Someone's on their tail. Bad sort, the kind that don't ask nice. Lena leaned in, her brow furrowing as she traced the photo's edges. "Ellie, I knew her from the VA shifts, sharp as a tack, but she got mixed up with some shady dealings, debts from her ex. Or so the talk went. Vanished like smoke last year." Her voice trailed, eyes shifting to the kids. Benji stirred then, blinking awake to the murmur of voices, his hand seeking Kara's. She whispered something soft in his ear, a lullaby fragment that cut through the tension like a thread of light. Marco cracked his knuckles, the sound sharp in the hush. "That box in there looks tampered with, like it don't want to be opened easy." He didn't touch it, respecting the invisible line Finn had drawn, but his mind was already turning gears, imagining locks and hidden compartments. Tate paced near the window, peering into the grey dawn where mist clung to the chain-link fence. "We ride blind, or scout first. Town's got eyes, cops or worse, those suits from the mill who own half the badges." Finn's jaw tightened, the scar along it pulling taut. He remembered the wreck Ellie had mended, shattered ribs, a concussion that blurred the world for weeks. She'd sat by his bedside, sharing stories of her own scars. A marriage gone sour, raising 2 kids alone while the system ground her down. "You promised me, Finn," she'd said, her hand on his. "If I ever need a shield, you'll be there." He'd nodded, half delirious, but the words stuck like burrs. Now, with the kids watching him, Kara's gaze piercing, Benji's wide with a mix of awe and fear, that promise ignited. "No blind rides," Finn decided, his voice steady as the club's code. "Lena, check 'em over. Make sure they're solid. Marco, see what you can about that box without busting it. Tate, eyes on the road. Any tales? You holler." He turned to Kara, crouching again to meet her level. "You two ain't alone anymore, but I need the truth. What happened to your mom? Why the run?" Kara hesitated, her fingers twisting the blanket's edge, the firelight gilding her dark hair. Benji leaned into her, whispering, "Tell him, Kara, he gots the big bike." She swallowed, voice barely above the crackle of flames. "Mom said bad people took her, for money she didn't owe, left us the bag, said find you if—" Her words choked off, but the implication hung heavy. If she couldn't come back. The room fell silent, the weight of it pressing like an unseen storm. Jax broke it first, slamming a fist on the table, not in anger but resolve. Then we honor it. Iron promise, don't bend for cowards in suits. Phones buzzed again, more riders confirming, word rippling out to the far-flung chapters, engines revving in distant towns. By mid-morning the lot swelled, bikes forming a steel phalanx under the climbing sun, chrome glinting like drawn blades. But as Lena coaxed Benji toward the kitchen for warm milk, a low rumble echoed from the highway. Not friendly thunder, but a sleek black SUV, windows tinted to secrecy, slowing at the club's perimeter. Tate tensed at the window, hand drifting to his belt. Finn's pulse quickened, the air turning electric with unspoken threat. The vehicle idled, then peeled away. But the message lingered. Hunters were circling, drawn by the scent of vulnerability. Finn slung the backpack over his shoulder, the metal box inside a cold promise of revelations to come. He glanced at the kids, now huddled with Lena, sharing tentative smiles over mugs of cocoa. In their eyes, he saw echoes of his brother, innocence demanding protection in a world that devoured it. The iron promise wasn't just ink and leather, it was this, the quiet stand against the dark. Whatever shadows Ellie had fled, they'd face them head-on, loyalty forging a path through the gathering storm, the engines outside idled, waiting for his word, a brotherhood awakened by one forgotten vow. The black SUV vanished into the morning haze, its taillights fading like dying embers. But the echo of its engine lingered in the clubhouse air, a low growl that set Finn's nerves on edge. He stepped to the window, the glass cool against his palm, scanning the chain-link fence where dew clung to the barbed wire like fragile jewels. The lot was a fortress of chrome and rubber, 24 bikes lined up in silent vigil, their riders milling about with the easy tension of men who'd stared down worse than shadows on wheels. Tate lingered by the door, his hand still hovering near the concealed holster, eyes narrow as he tracked the highway's curve. Inside, the fire pit's flames had died to glowing coals, casting a ruddy warmth that did little to chase the chill settling over the room. Kara sat cross-legged on the couch, the backpack now at her feet like a reluctant pet, while Benji perched beside her, sipping cocoa from a chipped mug that dwarfed his hands. Lena knelt before them, her medic's kit open on the floor, bandaging a scrape on Benji's knee with the gentle precision of someone who'd mended soldiers in the field. "There now," she murmured, her voice a soft anchor. "No more running on empty stomachs. You'll both be right as rain soon." Finn turned from the window, his boots thudding softly on the worn plank floor, each step measured to avoid startling the kids. The scar on his jaw itched under the morning stubble, a phantom reminder of old battles, but his focus sharpened on Kara's face, those sharp cheekbones mirroring Ellie's, now etched with a wariness beyond her years. He crouched again, the leather of his vest creaking, bringing himself eye-level with her. "That SUV," he said quietly, not accusing, just stating the fact like a shared secret. "You recognize it? From the bad men your mom warned about?" Kara's gaze dropped to the backpack, her fingers tracing the zipper's teeth as if they could bite back the truth. Benji set his mug down with a clink, leaning into her side, his small voice piping up first. It was like the one that followed us from the park, black with no noise inside. He mimed tinted windows with his hands, eyes wide but trusting now, the club's warmth weaving its spell. Kara nodded slowly, her whisper barely stirring the air. "Mom said they came for the box, said it had proof, about the money they stole from her job. She hid it for us, told us to run if she didn't come home." The words hung like smoke, curling through the room where the riders had gathered closer, their murmurs fading to a respectful hush. Jax leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his broad chest, the iron promise patch on his vest catching the light from a nearby bulb. Marco hovered near the table, his oil-stained fingers itching to pry into the mystery of the locked box, but he held back, respecting the kid's fragile trust. Tate slipped back inside, closing the door with a soft click that sealed them all in together. "Gone for now," he reported, "but circling. Saw it peel onto the old mill road. Folks with that kind of ride don't scout for scenery." Finn absorbed it, the pieces slotting into place like gears in an engine he'd rebuilt 100 times. Ellie had worked the late shifts at the local clinic, the kind where underfunded corners bred desperation. Whispers from those days painted a picture. Falsified records, kickbacks from suppliers who'd cut corners on meds to line pockets. She'd confided once, over that hospital coffee, about pushing back, refusing to sign off on the lies. "They'll come for me one day, Finn," she'd said, her eyes distant. "But the kids, promise you'll shield them if it comes to that." He'd brushed it off then, a drifter's nod, but now it burned, a vow reforged in the crucible of this moment. He stood, the floorboards groaning under his weight, and addressed the room without raising his voice, the quiet command of a man who'd led patrols through sandstorms. "Proof, then. That's what we're guarding. Not just for Ellie, but because turning blind eyes is what breaks the world." Nods rippled through the group, a silent oath exchanged in glances. Lena's steady resolve, Marco's mechanical focus, Tate's coiled readiness, Jax's unyielding bulk. The club wasn't about glory or guns blazing. It was this, the chosen family standing sentinel against the corrosion of power without heart. Marco finally approached the backpack, gloved hands gentle as he lifted it to the table. The metal box inside gleamed dully under the bulb's glow, its scratches telling tales of frantic hiding, claw marks from small fingers perhaps, or Ellie's own nails in a last desperate act. "No fancy lock," he muttered, peering close without touching, "but it's sealed tight, like it knows its secrets are hot. Could be docks, a drive, something that bites back if it gets out." He didn't force it. Instead, he sketched a quick diagram on a napkin, gears turning in his mind for a non-destructive way in. Benji watched, fascinated, inching forward. "Is it treasure?" the boy asked, his fear momentarily eclipsed by boyish curiosity. Kara shot him a warning look, but a ghost of a smile tugged at her lips, the first crack in her armor. "Mom called it justice," she said softly, meeting Finn's eyes. "Said it would make things right, if we were brave." Finn's chest tightened, the echo of his brother's last letter surfacing unbidden. "Keep your word, Ranger. It's all we've got left." He'd failed that one, the guilt a shadow that rode with him always. Not this time. Outside, the sun climbed higher, burning off the mist to reveal the club's perimeter in stark relief. The fence rattling faintly in the breeze, bikes standing like iron guardians. But the peace shattered with a distant wail. Sirens, faint but closing, slicing through the rural quiet like a knife. Tate bolted to the window again, cursing under his breath. "Cops! Or what passes for 'em around here. Coming from town center. Someone tipped 'em off about kids spotted on a bike." Finn's pulse thrummed, the air thickening with urgency. Corruption in Eldridge ran deep. Badges bought by the same suits who hunted Ellie, no doubt spinning tales of runaways or club trouble to justify a sweep. He scooped up the backpack, slinging it secure, and nodded to Jax. "Get the kids to the back room, Lena with them, Marco, Tate, perimeter watch. We talk our way out clean, but if it turns—" He didn't finish. The code spoke for itself, no surrender to those who'd betray the innocent. As the sirens grew louder, gravel crunching under approaching tires, Finn positioned himself at the door, the club's heart beating steady behind him. Kara clutched Benji's hand, following Lena's lead toward the shadowed hallway, but paused to look back. "You'll keep us safe?" she asked, voice small but fierce. Finn met her gaze, the weight of promises old and new anchoring him. "On my life," he said, the words of vow etched in steel. The first patrol car rolled into view, lights flashing silent against the blue sky, two officers stepping out with hands on belts. Routine. But their eyes scanned too sharp, too hungry. Finn opened the door, stepping into the light, the brotherhood at his back, an unspoken force. The confrontation brewed, tensions coiling like a spring, as the morning sun beat down on a standoff where loyalty would be tested, and secrets teetered on the edge of revelation. In the quiet before the questions flew, Finn felt the pull of the road ahead, a ride not just for survival, but for the honor that defined them all. The patrol car's doors creaked open with a metallic sigh, the officers emerging into the sun-drenched lot like figures from a half-remembered nightmare. The lead one, a stocky man with a badge that gleamed too polished for the dust of Eldridge, adjusted his hat against the glare, his partner hanging back with a hand, resting casual on the radio mic. Finn stood framed in the clubhouse doorway, the threshold a line drawn in shadow and resolve, his broad frame blocking the view inside. The air hummed with the faint tick of cooling engines from the bikes, the scent of sun-warmed asphalt rising like a veil between them. "Morning, Ranger," the lead officer drawled, his voice carrying the lazy drawl of authority backed by unseen strings. He scanned the lot, eyes lingering on the phalanx of Harleys, the riders frozen in casual poses, Jax polishing a fender with deliberate slowness, Tate leaning against the fence like he owned the horizon. "Got a call about some young ones spotted on the outskirts. Runaways, maybe. You seen anything?" Finn met the gaze steady, his own eyes unblinking under the bill of his cap, the scar on his jaw, a faint white line in the light. He could smell the tension, sharp as ozone before a storm. These weren't the small-town badges he'd shared a beer with once. Their postures screamed, bought loyalty, the kind that turned blind to corruption for a fat envelope. Behind him in the dim hallway, Lena's footsteps faded, guiding Kara and Benji to the back room, where the air was cooler, stacked with crates and the quiet hum of a generator. The backpack rested secure in Jax's grip now, passed like a baton in the shadows, the metal box inside a silent fuse waiting for the spark. "Runaways?" Finn echoed, his tone even, buying time as Marco slipped out a side door, circling wide to watch the patrol car's flank. "Plenty of shadows out there for folks to imagine things. Club's quiet this morning, just coffee and talk of a ride." He stepped forward a pace, boots grinding gravel, closing the gap without threat, his vest's patches catching the sun like badges of his own. The officer's eyes narrowed, flicking past him to the half-open door where firelight flickered faint from the hall. "Quiet, huh? Mind if we take a look around? Protocol on reports like this." The partner's hand twitched toward his belt, the radio crackling softly with static, a lifeline to whatever dispatcher pulled their leash. Finn's mind raced, piecing the puzzle. The SUV's earlier prowl, now this, word spreading fast, hunters closing the net on the kids, on Ellie's proof. He thought of her face in that photo, weary but fierce, entrusting him with the fragile weight of her world. No way these men touched that. Before Finn could respond, Jax ambled over, wiping his hands on a rag, his bulk a wall of easy menace. "Protocol's fine, but our house, our rules. You got a warrant or just fishing?" The officer bristled, but Jax's stare held, the kind honed from years of staring down worse than tin stars. In the distance, another engine growled. Friendly this time, a scout bike from the outer chapter rolling up slow, adding numbers without a word. The standoff stretched, the sun climbing hotter, sweat beading on the officer's brows. The lead one shifted, glancing at his partner, the radio's static hissing like a warning. "No warrant yet, but we will if we have to. Kids in danger. Folks say they were on a bike headed this way. Iron Promise ain't above the law." Finn's lips quirked, a ghost of a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Law?" In Eldridge, it bent like a reed in the wind, favors traded for silence on the clinic's dirty ledgers, the same ones Ellie had dared to document. He leaned in slightly, voice low. "We look out for our own here. If there were kids, they'd be safe, but you boys know that, been through these parts enough. Tension coiled tighter, the air thick with unspoken threats, when a soft clatter echoed from inside. The backroom door, Benji's voice murmuring faint, a child's curiosity overriding caution. Kara's hush followed, quick and sharp. The officer's head snapped toward the sound, the lead one pushing forward. "What's that?" Instinct surged. Finn sidestepped, blocking the door with his frame, while Jax moved fluid, rag dropping, as his hand guided the man's arm away. Not rough, but firm, a boundary etched in muscle. "Cat," Finn said flatly, the lie smooth as oil. Old place full of noises. But the damage was done. The partner's radio barked to life, a dispatcher's voice cutting through. "Unit 7, confirm visual on miners. Anonymous tip says they're at the Promise Clubhouse. Possible endangerment." The words landed like lead, the SUV's shadow lengthening in Finn's mind. These weren't random. Someone had eyes everywhere, pulling strings to flush the kids out. The lead officer's hand dropped to his holster, slow but deliberate. "Step aside, O'Sullivan. We're coming in." The lot went still. Riders closing ranks subtle. Lena appearing at a window, her face calm but eyes like flint. Marco circling back, a wrench glinting in his pocket like a promise of his own. Finn's heart pounded steady, the code thrumming in his veins. Protect the innocent, honor the vow, no matter the cost. He didn't move, voice dropping to gravel. "You want in, you earn it, but touch this door, and the road gets long for all of us." Sirens wailed anew in the distance, backup closing fast. The standoff teetered, seconds stretching like taffy, until the lead officer's radio crackled again, urgent. "Stand down, new call, priority, Mill District, disturbance." His face twisted, frustration etching lines, but he backed off a step, gesturing to his partner. "This ain't over, Ranger. We'll be back with paper." They retreated to the car, tires spitting gravel as they peeled away, leaving dust devils swirling in their wake. Finn exhaled slow, the door clicking shut behind him as the club exhaled too. Inside, the backroom door creaked open. Kara peeked out, Benji clinging to her leg, his eyes round with the echo of voices. "They gone?" she whispered. The backpack clutched tight in Lena's hands now, passed safe through the chaos. Finn nodded, crouching to their level, the morning light slanting through cracks like hope's first rays. "For now. But we move soon. Can't wait for the next wave." Jax clapped his shoulder, the group's energy shifting to motion, bikes fueled, scouts dispatched to map safe routes out of Eldridge. Marco finally set to work on the box in a corner, tools whispering as he probed without breaking, patience his weapon. Tate reported from the perimeter, the SUV spotted again, tailing the patrol car like a shark. The proof inside that metal shell burned hotter now, Ellie's justice a beacon in the gathering dark. Finn watched the kids, Kara's hand in Benji's, their trust a fragile bloom. He'd lost too much to shadows once. His brother, his drift, but not this. The iron promise roared to life outside, engines harmonizing, a family forged in fire ready to ride for redemption. As the sun arced toward noon, casting long shadows over the lot, Finn gathered the core crew around the table, the photo of Ellie laid out like a battle plan. "They know we're holding something," he said, voice steady. "Time to crack that box clean, get the truth out before they bury it." Nods circled the table, loyalty a current binding them. Kara stepped forward, hesitant but bold, placing a small key in Finn's palm. Hidden in her shoe all along, a final gift from their mom. "She said you'd know what to do." The key turned with a soft click, the box yielding its secrets, faded ledgers, a thumb drive etched with dates and names, clinic records twisted by greed, bribes that starved the sick for profit. Ellie's notes scrawled margins, evidence of theft, signatures from the very suits who owned the town. Finn's jaw set, the weight settling like purpose. No more hiding. This would expose the rot. Poetic justice served not with fists, but truth's unyielding blade. But as Marco scanned the drive on a secure laptop, a low buzz cut the air. Another vehicle approaching. Not sirens this time, but the sleek menace of the SUV, flanked by two more. The hunters had come calling direct, no badges to hide behind. Finn stood, slinging the backpack anew, the kids at his side. "Mount up," he called to the riders. "We ride for Ellie, and for what's right." Engines thundered to life, a defiant symphony as the club rolled out, steel and soul against the storm. Promises kept in the roar of the road. If this story's gripping you, hit that like button to show your support. The engine's roar built like a gathering tempest, a wall of thunder that shook the clubhouse walls and sent loose gravel dancing across the lot. Finn straddled his Harley, the familiar vibration humming through his bones, a pulse that drowned out the doubt creeping at the edges of his mind. Kara and Benji were tucked secure in the sidecar, rigged by Marco in hasty genius, padded with blankets, the backpack wedged between them like a talisman. The girl's small hand rested on the vinyl edge, her eyes locked on Finn's back, while Benji peered out wide-eyed, the wind already tousling his hair as the first bikes peeled forward. Behind them, the Iron Promise phalanx formed, Jax on his battered softail, Lena riding pillion with a medic's bag strapped tight, Tate scouting ahead on his nimble Sportster, Marco bringing up the rear with tools rattling in his saddlebags, 20 strong now, swelled by calls from sister chapters, their vests a ripple of serpent patches under the relentless noon sun. The black SUV led the charge from the highway's bend, flanked by two identical shadows, sleek predators cutting through the dust, no markings to claim them, but the cold gleam of authority in their tinted voids. Finn throttled up, leading the convoy onto the cracked asphalt that snaked out of Eldridge, the town shrinking in his mirrors like a bad memory. The air whipped sharp, carrying the bite of exhaust and the faint, acrid tang of fear sweat from the kids behind him. He glanced back once, catching Kara's nod, fierce, a mirror of her mother's resolve, and it steeled him. Ellie's evidence burned in his vest pocket now, the thumb drive copied and hidden in Marco's gear, the ledgers scanned and sent to a trusted contact beyond the town's reach. Proof of the clinic's rot. Falsified bills siphoning funds from the needy, signatures from councilmen who'd traded oaths for envelopes fat with cash. Justice, she'd called it, and Finn would deliver it, not with bullets, but the unyielding light of truth. The SUVs accelerated, engines snarling as they closed the gap, their tires humming over the median like hounds on a scent. Tate signaled from the front, veering the pack onto a side road that wound through scrubby hills, the kind of forgotten path where Eldridge's grip loosened. Dust billowed in choking clouds, the sun a white-hot hammer beating down on leather and chrome. Finn felt the pull of the road, that old rhythm sinking his heartbeat to the machine beneath him, a lifeline from the days when riding was escape, not salvation. But now, with Benji's soft gasp filtering through the wind, it was purpose. "Hold tight!" he called over his shoulder, his voice lost in the gale, but the intent clear in the set of his shoulders. Jax pulled alongside, his grizzled face streaked with grime, bellowing over the din. "They're gaining! 3 more joining from the East Fork. Suits mean business today." Finn nodded, eyes scanning the horizon where the hills dipped into a ravine, a natural choke point Marco had mapped earlier. The plan crystallized in fragments. Draw them in, scatter the evidence trail. By time to reach the county line, where Iron Promise allies waited with fresh wheels and a safe house carved into the pines. No glory in a chase. This was the quiet war of the overlooked, the stand against men who hid behind glass and gates while the world bled. The lead SUV surged, veering close enough for Finn to glimpse the driver. A sharp-suited figure with a phone pressed to his ear, jaw clenched like a vice. Bullying tactics next. The vehicle swerved, trying to box Tate's bike, but the young rider jinked sharp, gravel spraying as he evaded. A horn blared, angry and mechanical, cutting through the engine's symphony. Benji whimpered, Kara shushing him with a hand on his shoulder, her other clutching the backpack's strap. "It's okay," she murmured, though her knuckles whitened. Finn's mind flashed to Ellie, her steady hands on his wounds, her voice weaving stories of better days to pull him from the dark. She'd chosen this path, documenting the thefts that left patients like ghosts in waiting rooms, meds diluted or diverted for profit. The suits in those cars, they were the architects, now desperate to bury her legacy. Lena's voice crackled over the club's encrypted radio, clipped to Finn's belt. "Kids are steady. Benji's asking if we win races like this." A chuckle escaped Finn despite the tension, warming the knot in his chest. Family chosen, not by blood, but by the fire of shared scars. His brother had ridden with him once before the sands claimed him, promising to watch each other's backs. Finn had carried that alone too long. Now, the club embodied it, engines weaving a protective web around the sidecar. The ravine loomed, walls of red earth rising like silent witnesses, dotted with twisted junipers that clawed at the sky. Finn signaled the split, half the riders peeling left onto a fire trail, drawing 2 SUVs after them in a feint of dust and deception. Jack stayed with the core group, thundering down the main path as the lead pursuer hesitated, tires screeching in indecision. Finn pushed harder, the Harley responding with a growl that vibrated through his grip, the speed blurring the landscape into streaks of ochre and green. The remaining SUV lunged, bumping the rear of Tate's bike in a crunch of metal that sent sparks flying. Tate held his line, cursing into the radio, but the hit glanced off, buying precious yards. In the sidecar, Kara leaned forward, her voice carrying faint. "They're the ones from the clinic. The man with the shiny watch. Mom said he took everything." Finn's grip tightened on the bars, the revelation fueling the fire. Shiny watch. He'd match it to the ledgers later, a thread to unravel the web. The drive held names: Dr. Harlan Voss, Councillor Hale. Faces from Eldridge's underbelly, men who'd whispered threats to Ellie until she vanished, leaving her children as the last stand. The county line approached. A weathered sign half buried in weeds flashing by, "Welcome to Pine Ridge, leave your burdens behind." Allies' bikes waited in ambush formation. A dozen more Iron Promise riders emerging from cover, engines igniting like a flare. The SUV faltered, peeling off onto a spur road as the numbers tipped, its taillights shrinking in retreat. Finn eased the throttle, the convoy slowing to a rumble as they crossed into neutral ground. The air cooler here, scented with pine sap and relief. They pulled into a hidden clearing, bikes circling wagons around the sidecar. Jax dismounted first, helping Kara and Benji out, the boy's legs wobbling but his grin breaking through. "We flied!" he exclaimed, hugging Finn's leg. Kara stood taller, scanning the new faces. Veterans with weathered smiles, a nurse from a distant chapter offering water bottles. Finn knelt, the evidence safe in his pocket, the weight lifting fractionally. "You did good, both of you. Your mom's fight, it's ours now." But as the group huddled, Marco's radio buzzed with grim news, the faint riders shaken but whole, the suits regrouping in town, whispers of warrants brewing. The thumb drive's copy was en route to a journalist ally, seeds of exposure planted. Finn looked to the horizon, the sun dipping toward afternoon gold, casting long shadows that hid more threats. The ride wasn't over, it was evolving, a moral chase where loyalty outpaced fear. Ellie's promise echoed in the quiet moments, a beacon pulling them forward. Redemption not in vengeance, but in the unbreaking stand for what was right. The engines idled, ready for the next leg, the iron promise, an unbreakable chain in the fading light. The clearing in Pine Ridge nestled like a secret carved from the earth, ringed by towering pines, whose needles whispered secrets to the wind. The sun hung low now, painting the treetops in strokes of amber and shadow, as the Iron Promise riders dismounted with the quiet efficiency of a unit reassembling after fire. Finn swung his leg over the Harley, the seat still warm beneath him, and knelt to check on Kara and Benji. The sidecar's padding had held, but the girl's face was smudged with dust, her eyes holding a mix of exhaustion and that unyielding spark Ellie had passed down. Benji clambered out, his small boots sinking into the soft loam, and wrapped his arms around Finn's neck in a hug that smelled of cocoa and adventure. "We beat the bad cars," he mumbled, voice muffled against the leather vest. Finn ruffled the boy's hair, the gesture rough but tender, a father's echo from a life he hadn't claimed. "For now, kid. But the road's got more twists." He stood, scanning the group, Jax wiping sweat from his brow with a bandana, Lena distributing water from her pack, her nurse's instincts turning the clearing into a makeshift haven. Tate paced the perimeter, rifle slung low across his back, not drawn but a silent statement, while Marco hunched over his laptop under a pine shelter, the screen's glow casting blue flickers on his grease-streaked face. The thumb drive's copy hummed through encrypted channels, winging toward a journalist in the city who'd owed the club a favor since a ride that saved her from a breakdown on a deserted stretch years back. The air carried the crisp bite of resin and cooling earth, a far cry from Eldridge's stale corruption. But Finn felt no ease. The SUV's retreat had been tactical, not broken. Hunters like those didn't quit at borders. He thought of Ellie's note again, the scrawled urgency on the photo now tucked safe in his inner pocket, a talisman against the gathering dusk. She'd trusted him with her truth. The ledgers detailing how the clinic's funds vanished into offshore accounts, meds withheld from the desperate to pad the suit's nests. Names leaped from the pages, Voss, the clinic head with his predatory smile, Hale, the counsellor whose campaigns reeked of unexplained cash. Ellie had gathered it all, a quiet rebellion in stolen moments before they silenced her. For her kids, Finn would amplify it, turning whispers into a roar that toppled thrones. Lena approached, her braids swinging like a pendulum, and pressed a canteen into Kara's hands. "Drink slow, love. You've got your mother's steel." The girl sipped, her gaze flicking to the backpack Lena carried now, the metal box emptied, but its echoes lingering. Kara nodded, a faint smile breaking through. She always said promises were like these trees, deep roots, hard to pull up. Benji tugged at Finn's hand, pointing to a rider from the Pine Ridge chapter, a burly vet named Reyes with a prosthetic arm gleaming in the light. "He got a robot hand. Does it shoot lasers?" The group chuckled, the sound a brief balm, easing the knot in Finn's chest. Reyes knelt, flexing the metal fingers with a whir. "Nah, kid, but it fixes bikes faster than you can save room." Bonds formed in fragments like this, chosen family weaving tighter under pressure, scars shared like badges. Finn's own losses surfaced unbidden, his brother, gone in a blast that left no body, just a dog tag and a void. The club had pulled him from that edge, oaths replacing the silence. Now, these kids anchored him further, their innocence a mirror to what he'd fight to preserve. Jax sidled up, his voice a low rumble over the idling engines. "Scouts report movement. Those suits are rallying in Eldridge, calling in favors from the state boys. Warrants for us. Harboring fugitives spin. We hole up here till the journalist bites, then push the evidence public." Finn nodded, but his eyes caught a glint through the trees, a distant flash, like sunlight on glass. Tate stiffened, signaling from his post, and the clearing tensed, hands drifting to grips. "Eyes east," he called softly. "Vehicle. Slow rolling the ridgeline." Finn's pulse quickened, the air turning thick as he guided Kara and Benji behind a cluster of bikes, their forms small shields in the underbrush. Marco snapped his laptop shut, pocketing the drive's backup, while Lena drew the kids close, her presence a steady wall. The vehicle emerged partial, an unmarked van creeping along the fire road, no sirens but purpose etched in its crawl. Not the SUVs, but kin. Reinforcements, perhaps, probing for weakness. Reyes and two others mounted up quiet, engines muffled to purrs, circling wide to flank without a shot fired. This wasn't a blaze, it was the slow burn of moral siege, testing resolve before the storm. The van halted at the tree line, doors opening to spill three figures, suits crisp even in the wild, flanked by private security in tactical vests. One stepped forward, megaphone in hand, voice amplified and oily. "Oh, Sullivan, we know you've got the lins. Hand them over, nice and easy, and no one gets hurt. That evidence? It's fabricated, a desperate woman's lies. Walk away, heroes." The words slithered through the pines, laced with the arrogance of power unchecked, the kind that viewed oaths as paper to shred. Finn stepped into view, alone at first, the club fanning subtle behind him, a serpent uncoiling. His voice carried clear, no need for amplification, gravel rough with conviction. "Heroes? That's your game, Voss? Stealing from the sick, burying the truth? Ellie's no liar, she exposed you." The name hit like a spark, the lead figure, Voss himself. Shiny watch catching the dying light, faltered, his facade cracking. Security shifted, hands on holsters, but the Pine Ridge riders closed the circle, bikes forming a ring of steel intent. Kara peeked from cover, whispering to Finn, "That's him," the one Mom drew in her notes. Benji clutched her sleeve, but his fear held a thread of defiance now, mirrored in the club's unyielding line. Jax murmured at Finn's side, "We don't draw first, but we don't bend." The standoff stretched, seconds heavy as lead, the sun dipping lower to gild the tension in blood-red hues. Voss's megaphone crackled again, threats veiled as reason, but Finn saw the bluff. The journalist's confirmation buzzed in his pocket, the story breaking online, ripples turning to waves. A shot rang out, not from the club, but one of the guards, nerves fraying into panic, the bullet splintering bark near Tate's boot. Chaos ignited, engines roared to life, the phalanx surging forward in controlled thunder, scattering the suits back to their van. No pursuit. This was the pivot, the evidence unleashed, forcing their hand. As the vehicle fled, tires churning mud, Finn gathered the kids. The group's cheers, a defiant harmony. But victory tasted bittersweet. The real fight loomed in Eldridge, where corruption's roots ran deepest. Night fell soft over the clearing, stars pricking the canopy like distant promises. Around a low fire, stories flowed. Ellie's quiet courage, the club's hard-won loyalties, Benji's wide-eyed questions drawing laughs. Finn sat with Kara. The photo passed hand to hand, a relic binding them. "Your mum kept her word," he said softly, the flames dancing in her eyes. "Now we keep ours." She nodded, leaning into his side, the weight of chosen family settling like peace amid the storm. But scouts returned with whispers, raids brewing, Voss cornered but venomous. The road called again, honor's legacy pulling them back, redemption a ride yet unfinished, loyalty the engine driving them home. The fire crackled low in the Pine Ridge clearing, its embers pulsing like a heartbeat against the encroaching night. Stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses to the circle of faces etched in flickering gold, riders from 2 chapters now, their leathers creased from the day's grind, voices weaving tales that bridged the miles between them. Finn sat on a felled log, Kara nestled against his side, her head heavy on his arm, while Benji sprawled across his lap, eyelids drooping as Reyes demonstrated the whir of his prosthetic hand one last time. The air hung thick with the scent of pine smoke and cooling earth, a fragile truce after the van's retreat. But Finn's senses stayed sharp, tuned to the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the highway. Jax passed a thermos of coffee, the steam curling like ghosts in the chill. "Journalists live. Story hit the wires an hour ago. Eldridge Clinic scandal. stolen funds, silenced whistleblower. His words landed soft but seismic, drawing nods from the group. Lena stirred the coals with a stick, her face illuminated in resolve. Ellie's name's front and center. They can't bury it now, too many eyes. Marco glanced up from his phone, the screen's glow fading as he pocketed it. Copies are out. Feds are sniffing already. Voss's crew's scrambling like rats in daylight. Tate, perched on his bike's fender, holstered his radio with a satisfied grunt. Raids incoming on the clinic by dawn. Our scouts confirm, suits holing up, but the net's closing. Kara lifted her head, eyes reflecting the flames' dance, a mix of wonder and lingering ache. Mom! She did it. Even gone. Finn's hand rested on her shoulder, the weight of Ellie's photo still in his vest, its edges worn from passage. She started it. We finished the ride. Benji mumbled in his sleep. Something about big bikes and treasures. And the group softened, laughter rippling quiet, a balm for scars old and new. Finn felt it then, the pull of redemption threading through him like sunlight through canopy. His brother's shadow had ridden shotgun too long, a ghost of broken promises from a war that left him hollow. But here, with these kids and this crew, the void filled. Loyalty, not as chain, but wings. The night deepened, the fire's warmth a defiant glow against the dark, but peace, fractured with a low rumble, engines, multiple, approaching from the east ridge. Tate vaulted to his feet, signaling the perimeter watch, while Jax doused the flames with a bucket of sand, plunging the clearing into starlit shadow. Finn eased Benji to Lena's care, the medic guiding the kids to the sidecar's shelter, her whisper steady. Stay low, loves. We've got the watch. Kara clutched the backpack's empty shell, her small frame taut but unbowed, as Finn joined the line forming subtle among the pines. Riders melting into cover, bikes silent sentinels. Headlights pierced the gloom. 3 vehicles cresting the rise, the SUVs again battered from the chase, leading a pickup crammed with private muscle. Hired shadows in dark jackets, faces hard under ball caps. No sirens, no badges. This was desperation's last lunge, Voss's empire cracking under the story's weight. The convoy halted at the tree line, doors slamming like punctuation, the lead figure emerging. Voss himself, suit rumpled, his shiny watch catching moonlight like a false star. Flanked by 4 guards, he stepped forward, voice carrying on the breeze, edged with false calm. "O'Sullivan! The kids! The evidence! Hand it over, and we call it even! The story's a bluff! It'll fade by morning!" Finn emerged from the shadows. Alone at first, the club's presence a felt pressure at his back, Jax's bulk to the left, Tate's steady aim from a juniper blind. The air cooled further. Dew beading on leather, the scent of tension sharp as gunpowder. Even? Finn's reply cut clean. No shout, just the gravel truth of a man who'd stared down worse. You stole from the broken, Ellie called you on it and you erased her. But truths don't fade, they burn. Voss's face twisted, the megaphone unnecessary now, his words a hiss. She was a fool, meddling in business, those ledgers. Forged. Give me the brats, and walk. The guards shifted, hands dipping toward concealed pieces, but the iron promise uncoiled. Reyes whirring his prosthetic as he circled wide, Marco's wrench glinting subtle, Lena's voice calling from cover. One step closer, and you meet the medic's other skills. Benji's soft whimper carried faint, a child's anchor pulling at hearts. And Kara's whisper followed. Tell him about Mom's notes, the watch, the lies. Voss froze, eyes darting, the story's details already viral, reporters circling Eldridge like vultures. His bluff crumbled. The Fed's vans were en route, lights flashing distant on the horizon. A guard lunged forward, overeager, boot snapping a twig, the spark. Tate's warning shot cracked the night. Splintering dirt at their feet, no flesh touched, just the poetry of restraint. Chaos bloomed brief, engines ignited in unison, the phalanx surging not to ram, but to envelop, bikes forming a roaring barrier that herded the SUVs back. Voss scrambled into his ride, bellowing orders that dissolved in exhaust, the pickup peeling away in a spray of mud. No blood spilled. Justice came in the retreat. The evidence is light outshining their dark. As taillights vanished, the clearing exhaled, riders reconvening under the stars. Finn knelt by the sidecar, pulling Kara and Benji into a hug, their small forms warm against the chill. "It's over," he murmured, though the word felt tentative. The real end waited in courtrooms, but the heart of it beat here. Jax clapped his back, the group murmuring approvals, phones buzzing with confirmations. Voss in custody at the county line, Hale's office swarmed, Ellie's proof had toppled the throne, moral victory etched in headlines that would echo. Dawn broke slow over Pine Ridge, painting the pines in rose and gold as the convoy prepped for the return, safer now, routes cleared by Allied scouts. Finn mounted his Harley, Kara and Benji secure behind, the wind promising open skies. The road ahead wound homeward, not to escape, but to rebuild, foster papers in motion for the kids, the club a permanent shield. Finn's scar ached less in the light, his brother's memory honored in this chosen path, promises kept, family forged, redemption a quiet roar. In Eldridge, the clinic's doors stood sealed. The corrupt web unraveled by truth's steady hand. Finn rode with the wind at his back, loyalty's engine carrying them forward, a legacy of honor unbroken. Thank you for riding this story with us to the end. If it touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more tales of courage and chosen family coming your way.